Mani o poto tēnei. Te mihi atu ki a koutou. Me te whitikina te pā. Whirai o tātou mahi tēnei a pātea. Anō reira ka tupuna te tarākua ki a koe matu ako. Right on, Uncle John? Nā tō tātou hui e tupera?
Ai.
Nā koe.
A kia ora tātou katoa. Tā mei nei ki roti tēnei whare. Whare e te whare e whakamahana i a tātou. Ngāti mani poto. Nō reira ia tau o nā whāra. Ngā huatanga. Whāra kia mani poto ki ringi a tātou katoa. Tēnei te kotahi a tātou. Rara tō tātou whare. Nō reira. E hono rei ko ria he maungarongo ki te penua. Whakao pai ki ngā tāngata katoa. Te atua tō tātou piringa. Hei manaki a tātou i tēnei wā. Nō reira. Te atua. Kei ai e te piringa. E kaua i ngā kaupapa kei mua i a tātou. Kei rungi tēnei tepu. E whakapua wai ngā huatanga. O tō tātou i pia mani poto Nito. Nō reira, koe nei rate i tēnei wā, te kuatu kia ia no mai tōna koro wai hei uhi ia tātou mo tēnei wā poto. Āmai ngā wā e hara mai nei, ingi a tātou. Nō reira, te atua, koe nei rā mātou e inoi nei, te a koe, e na hotunu mātou raro i a koe me tamai. Hake. Āmei.
Anō hoki ki a koe ako, tēnā koe i te wera tō tātou hui tēnei apa. I'm just thinking that possibly some of us around the table won't recognise each other. So it might be good just to start with a very, very quick rangatanga round. Everybody okay with that? So Wiki Tuaria Tāne, and I am the co-chair of this forum, formerly a trustee, but still holding some of the portfolios. Me te tēnā tātou katoa, nau mai hoki mai, haere mai. Tēnā.
Kia ora Victoria. Oi kia ora tātou, John, no mātou mihi I whakatū tō tātou hui. So I'm an elected councillor for the Waikato Regional Council for the Waipai King Country constituency, which is where we are, and the chair of this forum committee. Kia ora.
Kia ora tātou, John Tati. I live out at Kawhi on the south side of the country. I farm there and also have some interest elsewhere in the Waikato. It's good to be here. I look forward to building this relationship that make things worthwhile for us, all of us, and for the next generation. Kia ora.
Kia ora tū. Tēnā whe matua nau whakariti te hurahi mo tō tātou hui tēnei ata, tēnā koe. Ko tāroha ki o te ko moi hau ki waho, tika ko te moana ko haura ki te whenua, ko maruturu te tangata, ko Ngāti Mau, ko Ngāti Pukinga hoki Uiui, ko Neville Williams tofu ingoa, no the Waikato Regional Council, and we are director. Kia ora koutou.
Kia ora koutou, ko Moiora Barry, tofu ingoa, representative for Te Whare o Moka, kia ora, South. North Sound, kia ora.
Kia ora tātou, he kaimahi au mo te Nehenehenui, ko Glenn Tūtō tōku ingoa. Glenn Tūtō, I'm not here for te Nehenehenui. Not exactly sure how I got a table. Got a seat at the table.
Kia ora tātou, ko Jamie Tamaki tōku ingoa. No te iri o Taharua Ruaputanga me Kawhi o Moana hoki. So I'm the councillor for Tauranga District Council and the co-deputy chair. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Hello, my name is John Robertson. I'm the mayor of Waitomo and brought up in the area just south of Pupi. So kia ora, look forward to this, and it's great to see this from coming out of the settlement and moving on along the journey. Kia ora.
Morena, Cassidy Timisi, Maniapoto Waikato and Ngāpuhi. I'm the Kaitapa Wainga Iwi Relations Advisor for Otorohanga District Council, so similar for Karo Te Glen. I'm like, oh, I'm sitting it, but kei te pai, morena.
Atu maria tātou, ko tili tūni ahau, ko tai taku nohonga ki te tairunga takiwā o Waikato District Council. Kia ora tātou.
Morena, tautoko ngā mihi, and you just want to thank Nehenehenui for beautiful welcome and the kai this morning. It's wonderful. Like Glenn and Cassidy, I think this is a joke from our bosses. But however, it's to be here at the table. Roger Lewis, I'm from Tairanga Whenua, at Waikato Regional Council.
Morena, everybody. I'm Susan O'Regan, the Mayor of Waipa, mother of far too many, dairy farmer, lawyer, and I regularly wonder how I got to sit around tables, but it's a great pleasure to be here and thank you for the very warm welcome as always. Kia ora.
Kia ora tātou, te taha o tōku matcha o Waikato Maniapoto te iwi. Ki te taha o tōku whaia ko te rarawa te iwi, no te whānau Harris. Nō reira tēnei te mihi atu kia koutou, ko Gena Normsby taku ingoa. I'm new here, but old. I've been in this space for about 20 years, on the periphery. Right from the inception of the Guardians Establishment Committee. So I'm privileged to be sitting at this table, and I look forward to building and strengthening our relationships with our council partners, especially during this hard times. Nō reira, tēnā koutou.
Kia ora tātou, ko Dave Doggart, toku ingoa. I'm a democracy advisor from Waikato Regional Council, and I'm here just to take a few notes and pay attention. And if I can help with anything, just let me know. Kia ora.
I'd like to know what that means. Good on you, good luck. I'm actually going to shift it because the machinery of everything that happens around this table is really on the periphery. So can I please start with you and just go through all of our teams, please?
Tēnā tātou, Tomei Murray tōku ingoa. My role at Nehenehenui, Taia, Safe Settlement Protection Manager, Safe Tita Holder, / Whakawhai, Whare, kia ora.
So Alex Bell, I'm the Junior Manager Strategy and Environment at Waikato District Council.
Kia ora tātou I ngā rangatira, Nere Honga, ko Tony Football Tapu Ingoa, Group Manager of Regulatory and Growth at Otorohanga District Council.
Kia ora tātou. Tēnei te mihi atu ki a koe te kaiwhakarite o te wā, ko o tira ki aku rangatira, ko tai mai nei tēnei wā, nei rā te mihi. Tūrahanga Douglas, he mema o Tairanga Whenua, ki te kaunihira arohe o Waikato. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora tātou, ko Māli Ahi Pene Ahau. I am Pautūhono in Tairanga Whenua with Waikato Regional Council.
Kia ora hui mo koe tō kato. Kau mātua hau o te puahu Waikato. Kia ora.
Kia ora mai tātou. Ko rima tau e tōku nei ingoa. Ko au te kai āwhina mō our local mayor of Waikato, Jackie Church. I go around as you go mātua. Kia ora mai tātou.
Kia ora.
Kia ora tātou, ko Julie Van Rossum tōku ingoa. I'm a Specialist Policy Advisor at the Waikato Regional Council. Kia ora.
Kia ora tātou, ko Stuart Clark. I'm the student intern working full-time with the team at the Waikato Council.
Kia ora tātou, ko Kahiwere Timaunga, ko Mokai Te Awa no Piopio ahau, kei Kirikiri Rawa ahau noho ana. Ko au te Community Growth General Manager mo te kaunihira Takiwā Waikato. Kia ora.
Kia ora tātou, ko Everard Whangaplē tātou whenua. I am the Procurement Manager for WDC.
Ko mai tēnei pa ko ai tēnei tua tēnei ko mai he paki tōku ingoa ko hau te Executive Manager Māori Partnerships I roko I te kaunihira Waikato.
Morena tātou, ko Gary Knight I tōku ingoa, Strategic Partnerships Manager, Waikato District Council.
Tēnā tātou. Please look after our people. As governors, I think that's important. Not that. Bring my kauri tātou ki te rāpaka on this agenda. So you want to read some of this or I should have been doing about this one?
You guys got anything this way?
Yeah, we've got a fairly straightforward agenda. I think from most of the information in the pack is for information as opposed to decisions.
I've got a few things I want to talk about.
Yeah.
I'll just run through these.
Yeah, you did it.
Okay. So, we've got any formal apologies we need to record? Oh, okay, cool. There we go.
We've got Shannon Makaire, Sam Makaire and Shannon Manawaiti.
Dave, find the right one. Yeah. I'll move those. Body or second, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Everyone happy that the agenda is in front of you as business for the meeting? Nothing else we need to add? So I'll move that.
Are you going to make any comment?
Yeah.
Is that the last part of our agenda?
Which one are you looking at?
Will be, yep.
Final comments and you've got something to.
Yeah, just want to make a note that you've got something to add.
Yeah, I'm happy to wait till then.
Yeah, cool. Okay. I'll move the second agenda.
The second the agenda.
Okay, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. And our minutes from our last Nehenehenui on the 23rd of August 23. Anyone got any corrections to make? It's for your memories. That's page 3 of our agenda. Not, could I have a mover and seconder, please, for those that were here?
Move it.
Susan's moving it. I'll second it. Those in favour that those minutes for a true and correct record, please say aye. Against, carried.
I'll go and call up. I was.
You'll do the next one.
So the next one item on our agenda today is the adoption of the terms of reference. And it's to confirm establishment of TNN Co-Governance Forum on terms of reference. And you're going to take it as read, assuming that everyone's had a chance to tell us to have a look at those. And so what we're shall I read it to you or so I'm just thinking in terms of the terms of reference, one of the things that we want to raise is to lift the quorum, because in the terms of reference, I think originally there were four, but since we've had Waikato into this forum officially, what we're looking to increase that to 6. Mm-hmm. That's where the difference is that sits there. And it also provides for more than half of the total representation, which is best practice. Okay. So in terms of this item, it is to approve. But does anybody have any?
Madam Chair, just small change in terms of the recommendation at 3E. Deputy Mayor Liz Stolwart has listed there as the alternate for Waikato District Council. It should actually be Councillor Dale Marie Morgan.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And you'd like to appoint a deputy co-chair too?
Yes. So just in terms of, and the deputy co-chair was one of the items that was needed to get across the line, and we're still in the process of that. But it actually, that notification will come out. It's Kapai.
You got that right by one, Dave? Yep.
Any other comments in regards to the terms of reference?
Just the responsibilities, I guess, is the because within this thing, they have their own responsibilities and they work under the Act. We also have the Act, I guess. Where is there a possibility that it might cross the line in terms of the other bodies like the Waikato District Council, the Otanga District Council, who has their own set of responsibilities? And where do we, is it all just reporting and
I'm not sure.
there are no decisions around what this body can make?
Everything that sits in terms, I think this is the answer to your question, Atua. Everything that sits into the work in terms of what our operations team and what side here sits within the parameters of the terms of reference. So this is the terms of reference specifically for this forum, for our relationship to Nehenehenui relationship with each of the councils.
But it's a relationship
Legislation.
for more than anything.
It's probably a little bit more than just a relationship forum. I guess this is the table where, in terms of governance, where we can discuss and potentially agree to matters that are on the poto and how councils can contribute to supporting that.
And this one and the one that's coming up, I guess, sets out the process in which if any issues arise, how we go about dealing with those in a constructive way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's all right. It's, we don't want to be arguing over an issue supposed to be dealt with.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
If it's just to accept the reports and that sort of thing, well, you don't have that problem.
I do think that this forum provides an opportunity to, I guess, shore up our relationships with council and to get support for whatever it is that we need to get across the line in terms of our taiao space and the.
Yeah, I think ideas is okay.
Sorry?
I think ideas is okay, but it's only just free and easy to give.
Yeah, I guess.
A person's view.
Yeah.
Different to us moving a motion in any way.
Yeah, but I guess that this is an opportunity for us, for each of us, for Nehenehenui and for the council to actually operationalise those things that we discuss that are in line with all of our aspirations. Ita taiao. Would you like to?
Oh, no, I was just, there's specific matters set out in our settlement example, which this forum is actually overseas.
So we needed to be guided by what we put on there that doesn't impinge on other acts.
Yeah, the terms of reference by and large has already been accepted. These are just tweaks at the moment that we've discussed today. And atu I tērā, apart from that, we're seeking for the terms of reference to be ratified today, pending inclusion of those amendments.
Yeah.
The Waipa councillor and in terms of the numbers for Apai, but atu I tērā, it's pretty much already been agreed to, and that terms of reference has been circulated for.
Yeah. No, I think it's okay, but the one thing is that we've got to get a relationship that's helps the delivery of other councillors.
Right.
So, but it doesn't say that in terms of what I'm thinking anyway.
Just really picking up the point, Matua John, there. The councils have legislation they have to abide by. the settlement agreement works through that and has legislation. And I guess in the next section, we'll be talking about a document which there is a decision implementation of the plan. But yeah, we've it is something that has exercised my mind too as to how all this works. Well, the legislation helps bring it together and says how we might operate as councils versus the Nehenehenui, the committee, and it tries to find a way through that. Then I think the practical side there, as we go to implement this, that's where the partnerships are going to need some what I'd call reason as we work through issues over time. So I think it works.
Any other comments or from the rest of the table?
If I may, through the chair, just reinforcing Mayor Robertson's comments in respect to the work plan that's coming up, and a lot of the detail and the actions of this committee will be centred around the content of that plan. So hopefully that gives you some heart. Yeah, good point.
Okay. Are we ready now to move to moving the resolution?
Probably do all three at once if you wanted, just noting a couple of amendments.
Three? I mean, all three.
Okay, so page 11 is there's three recommendations and three's got A through to G. Suppose we do it all at once. All as one block if everyone's had to quite with that.
A little bit small on that.
Yeah, so it's basically setting out adoption of the report, confirming the establishment of the Co-Governance Forum and the TOR that are attached, and the appointments in which we've noted Liz Stowak should be Dalmarie Morgan, and obviously Nehenehenui will be confirmed in due course. So, a mover.
I'm happy to move.
Susan O'Regan's moved. Seconder, please. Second. Jamie's happy to second. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Page 15.
This is the implementation plan for page 15. And we're requiring a decision here to present the draft implementation plan for the joint management agreement between Te Nehenehenui, Otorohanga District Council, Waikato District Council, Waikato Regional Council, Waipa District Council, and Waitomwa District Council. Draft implementation plan for the joint management agreement between Te Nehenehenui and councils outlines actions and schedules until November 2024, fostering collaborative natural resource management while respecting cultural values and statutory requirements. Collaboration and process reporting ensure effective implementation. And so we've got a recommendation here from staff that the report implementation plan for the joint management agreement, Te Nehenehenui Co-Governance Forum for March 2024, be received. One. Number two, that the draft implementation plan for JMA between Te Nehenehenui and councils is approved as the mechanism that sets out clear actions for JMA execution until November 2024, ensuring alignment with statutory requirements and cultural values. So we're assuming that you've had an opportunity to read through that. Mm-hmm. We can take this here. Right. Do we discussion?
I will, we're really following on the conversation that John started. In this implementation plan and following the legislation and thing we've read, you'll see, on agenda page 25 on this, in this start of trying to interpret, I think, what some of these provision mean? And I think as we go through this over the years, you know, the test of reasonableness is going to need to be applied by us all. For a small council, for instance, that this plan enables Nehenehenui to secure information from councils, for instance, and that's all fine for if it's all reasonable. So, and I guess I just raise that as the sort of example of, you know, for a small council, the way this reads, there could be a huge request from, I guess is it this forum or Te Nehenehenui? I'm not sure where it comes from, for information from councils, and we need to supply it under, you know, except that's restricted under official information, but it puts quite a burden on councils. So as we go through this, I'm just sort of pushing for we're going to, over the years, need to be reasonable to make sure we don't impose huge costs on one another as we start to implement and interpret the agreement.
And I think that in terms of reference actually gives us space, I guess. I'm not really, I know that this is about the implementation. I guess that my question is what's reasonable? Determining what reasonable is. Because what somebody thinks is reasonable might be totally unreasonable from our point of view. And I think too that are recognising that all of these councils, and we have a couple of people reaching out into from councils to get things done. So yeah, I don't know whether or not we should. I guess when in terms of the reasonable comes in the discussions as it happens.
Maybe the kōrero is around the how. How are we going to achieve development of those schedules and work together? Which as you all know, we have a working group of all our staff within each of the parties that come together, and we'll look to meet monthly. And then what we've gone and established is a subgroup to actually work on the draft development of those schedules, which will set up the processes, the timeframes, the agreed outcome of each of those, like RMA processes, resource consenting. And we will look to also workshop that in with the council, so there is an agreed and an understanding of how those will impact individual parties, councils, the iwi, to enable us to participate through all of those processes. So the how is that we have our staff, our kaimahi, in all of our organisations that will pull together and be responsible for drafting those schedules on how we'll work together. What we do ask from Te Nehenehenui is to bring all your people, because we know there are many within the council. We have a team of 1/2. So we're asking that the councils actually lead a lot of this responsibility as well, that it's not just left with Te Nehenehenui and Waikato Regional Council to drive. Thank you. That's me.
Good. Just a question to John. In the 12 years that we've been in co-management, is there any particular example that you can allude to in regards to where it became a problem around information sharing?
No, I can't. I just, yeah, I'm not really looking for a resolution here. And I think what Charmaine says is it's just for, again, putting a hat on of a small council. This is a big organisation, and there's a whole lot of councils in here too that are much bigger than we are. We just, you know, we only have 1 or 2 staff to managing some of these processes. So no, there's not an example. It's just when I read this, it says, you know, the requirement basically has to be met. And all I'm asking, and you know, this is a discussion that'll go on, that as we make requests, we think about the size of the organisation.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, look, I think it's a good point to raise, John, just for awareness, and but ultimately, this table and as Gannon has said, previous relationships, I think all form the basis for a really constructive way forward, and there'll also be opportunities where requests for information may be applicable to more than one council, in which we can all work together and create efficiencies that way as well, So by and large, I think providing we get it right here from a relationship perspective, it should all bode well for a positive future. So, yeah.
But can I just add to Mayor John's comments? Obviously, despite not being particularly considered a small council, we do also have our capacity constraints financially, particularly at this point in time. I'm just sort of drawn to, and excuse my stupid question, I'm pretty good at those. But in terms of the on page 24, the question, the Schedule 8, it refers to Local Government Act processes, and the due date that you allocated there relates to June of this year. I'm just kind of trying to understand what specifically Local Government Act processes you're alluding to, and just saying that there will be challenges around that in terms of capacity. Waipa has elected to defer its long-term plan. We're undertaking an enhanced annual plan. We're really mindful of the pressure our organisations under in terms of trying to get all their ducks in a row. So I'm just trying to understand what the expectation could be there, and not overinflate what our capacity is, and be honest about that from the outset, I guess. And yeah, as I say, stupid questions. So that's sort of my question, is trying to understand specifically what that could be, what that could involve.
And an example could be around how we get together on specific documents.
Okay. By law reviews and other statutorily required.
Yes, I think then we need more about how we can collaborate together on the development of local government documents, so your bylaws, your policies. So what would the relationship be? So if you're looking to review a bylaw, when would you engage? How would, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. Same for the LTP as well. Like what we would be defined for engagement. Yes.
Cool. Okay, I'm totally good with that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we aim to improve our not capacity, but our the timeliness of those conversations. But so long as I'm not committing us to another whole layer of other engagements or expectations, mindful of our own capacity restrictions, I'm really happy with that. Oh, thank you for that.
Hopefully you had something.
Look, I think from what I'm getting here is that we need to be careful that whatever we do, it doesn't put pressure on our staff, because from what happens then is that to ensure that we meet those deadlines, it might end up costing the council, and as a ratepayer, I too have I too have a ratepayer feeling about where we should be going about what council is a necessity, I know, but is there some way in which it can be seen to be doing its job well enough in times of, well, like we have today? I think right now is a good time to actually put together forums that might work. It's always we get carried away when things are so robust that we don't think about, well, what actually happens out there on the grass. So anyway, that's my view. So I think the staff needs to be quite involved in this whole thing, and they need to be sure that we are told, because that we are either too enthusiastic or not enough, whatever that is. But anyway.
Te tupu o whakaro, John. Yeah, so really we're going to lean into the technicians to ensure that how we can work better together for better outcomes for our people. the intent isn't really to put undue pressure, because we understand that the local government have their own roles and obligations to meet. I'm hoping that we'll come up with some innovative ways on how we can work strategically to optimise the relationship and leverage from our court partners. That'll be the key component going forwards.
Right. I think, you know, as Tremaine has already alluded to, in terms of those discussions between actually the technicians, between our staff, to then put proposals or whatever in front of us, I think I'm anyway quite comfortable with the terms of reference, because it gives room to move as well, but to move in a way that is agreed to by the parties.
Mm.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Sorry to be a bit of a piece here, but just again, it's a matter on page 26, just in terms of key personnel. Gary Knighton, who's seated behind me, is leaving us, so it might be appropriate. No spite putting that word, but anyway.
Decline.
It's heading down the line further. If we could just put in temporarily there, Kirsty Downey as the basically page 27 for the strategic partnership. Yeah. And obviously in the fullness of time, our chief executive will change as well. Sorry, just small beyond that.
Just to follow on from that, from your comments, page 26, sorry, down the bottom where it's talking about implementation, it notes the two people as Tremaine Murray and Missy Love. Missy Love is no longer with the Tari, so will be a replacement at some point in time.
I'm assuming these names can be changed as required going forward without having to come back here. Right?
Yeah. I'm aware. That's all of the discussion on that point. Are we happy to, are we at the point now where we're happy to make the motion? Well, I'll read it out. Staff recommendation that the report implementation plan for the joint management agreement, the Nehenehenui Co-Governance Forum, this form, that March be received. That the draft implementation plan for the JMA between Nehenehenui and councils is approved as the mechanism that sets out clear actions for JMA execution until November 24th, ensuring alignment with statutory requirements and cultural values. So we're at that point now where we can move. To move, can we have a seconder, please? John. Right.
Aye.
Oh, any abstentions? Should say that. Well, Mama, thank you. Okay, so the next on our agenda is
All very interested in.
that we're all very interested in.
Page 38.
28? Yeah. We're in the fast track one, aren't we?
Through the chair, both presenters are online. Brent Sinclair, who's just popped up on the screen, and Steve, who was the author of the report, and he was in Wales or Ireland or somewhere foreign. I'm not sure exactly.
Tēnā thanks, Ned. Kia ora koutou, ko Brent Sinclair, tōku ingoa. Ko te kai hautu o te Karakia Rohia Waikato, so I'm along with Nev, one of the directors at the Regional Council. Today we have with us Mark Brocklesby, who mans our Devon office in the UK, so it's about 20 past 10 at night for Mark. So thanks to Mark for joining us. Many of you will know Mark. Mark's had over 40 years experience implementing various environmental legislation in New Zealand, and is one of the,
I guess I would say one of the more experienced RMA practitioners in the country. So we're very lucky that we've still got Mark on staff to be able to guide us all. So Mark was the author of this report. I'm very conscious of the time that you have, so kind of in your hands, whether or not you would like Mark to do a bit of a brief overview of the report and then be available for questions, or whether or not you'd like to dive straight into questions. So we'll leave that in your hands, how you'd like us to present.
So if we could have a brief overview, that would be helpful.
Right.
Absolutely. So over to you, Mark.
Thank you. Yeah, kia ora tātou. Nice to see a lot of familiar faces there. Now, I do have slightly dodgy internet, so I've got my fingers crossed that this works out okay. Okay, so in the interests of a brief overview, I won't take you through the report as in its entirety, but it's there for you. So this fast track approvals bill was released on the 7th of March. It was one of the first 100 days commitments made by the new government. So they've met that commitment. They've released the bill. It's had quite a lot of public commentary since it was released, which was a couple of weeks ago. A lot of it's been reasonably negative, I suppose. There is, quite a lot of criticism around the traps. Terms like riding roughshod over normal practices and ministerial overreach and terminology of that sort. So we're really just starting the process of looking at it, trying to understand it. I think our next step is for our policy people to pull together a submission for the next stage in the legislative process, which is the select committee. I think that's in a month or two down the track. So that will be coming to council through the policy people in due course. I am aware that the report that I've put together here is very much from the regional perspective. I'm aware there are lots of TA folk in the room. I would say that probably the implications are very similar. This is about fast track consenting, whether it's a resource consent or a notice of requirement. The procedures and processes are quite similar. So my report describes the bill, how it works. It's not really a critique of the bill itself. It's more about what's in it and what are some of the implications. It is modelled on previous fast track legislation, particularly the COVID recovery legislation. But having said that, there are some quite significant differences as well. One of the things that many critics have focused on is the solely developmental focus of the purpose of the Act. So the Act's purpose is set out in very plain language. It's all about development. There are no sort of balancing considerations of resource management or sustainability, as there was for the COVID legislation. Now that's important because whilst in the final decisions under this Act, RMA matters have to be taken account of, plus a whole lot of other matters. None of those other matters override the development purpose of the fast track legislation. So in other words, the fast track legislation can really override all of those other resource management and other considerations. It is a one-stop shop in the sense that it really ties together a whole lot of consents into one process. It's open to projects that can demonstrate regional or national benefit. Some of the criticism of the bill has been that the criteria for that are way too broad, and that pretty much any project can fit within it, especially if the ministers who decide whether or not to refer it to that process want to see that project go ahead. So just a little bit about how the process works. Really, there are two stages for a project to go through under this Act. The first stage is getting referred to the process itself. And that's the decision that's made by 3 or 4 ministers jointly. They include, the development minister, housing ministers, transport. Notably, there's no room for the Minister for the Environment in that mix of people who decide whether projects should be referred to the process or not. And again, this is one of the significant criticisms that has sort of percolated through. And of course, the Crown itself can be a developer. So you can have a situation where a Crown development is determined by the Crown to be referred to the process, and the Crown decides yes or no on that project. So it's rather unusual in that respect. The process is administered by the EPA. The Minister for the Environment has very little part in the whole process. I think their role is quite administrative. As I say, it's the joint ministers for transport, housing and so forth who make the decisions about both referral and the final decision. The report does touch on some of the implications for both iwi and the council. In particular for iwi, you're going to see quite a different process here from what you would expect under the RMA. So there are no formal submissions. There are what's called written comments that are invited, and those written comments have to be considered. But as I mentioned before, all considerations other than the purpose of the Act are secondary considerations effectively. There is no right to be heard as per the usual RMA process, and the rights of appeal are quite limited as well. I think the Act has has a number of elements in it that do suggest that treaty obligations, treaty arrangements, things like iwi management plans, joint management agreements, all of the provisions of those instruments need to be considered in the decision making. But as I said, they're all secondary in the final shakedown of whether a project proceeds or not. From a council point of view, we've got, I guess, a number of concerns. Cost recovery for our part in the process is one of them. Basically, the public is excluded from this process. Relevant local authorities need to be involved. Where the public is excluded, there's really a greater reliance on the local authority to perhaps represent issues of concern to local communities and so forth. Unfortunately, the cost recovery provisions as they currently stand will mean that most of that work will fall on the ratepayers. So that's something that we would be wanting to raise in our submission, I suspect, to the Select Committee. That's probably a very quick overview. I mean, there are a few checks and balances in the system, but really the weight of considerations are always going to favour the granting of consents. in terms of the impacts on treaty settlements and so forth, one document I will draw your attention to is a supplementary analysis that the Ministry for the Environment put together. It's called Treaty Impact Analysis for the Fast Track Approvals Bill. It's a 9-page report available on the MFE site, or I could send the link around through Dave, is it? I could send it around, but that's a quite detailed setting out of how at least the Ministry for the Environment views the impact of this legislation on iwi interests and values. There are some positives, but I think overall it's a more negative picture. Right, well, I've sort of scanned a few high-level points there. I'm happy to try and answer any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone have any burning questions? Anything that stands out? I wonder about, the thing that I wonder about is what each of our council own commission look like in relation to this bill.
I guess for me and my community, we're only talking about more developments. Is there a limit in which that act can come in and overtake the RMA? I'm talking about where I live.
Size threshold, yes.
Yeah, where the size of your development gets you only have the one process. You can't go to the other.
Yeah, that's correct. And in fact, there is provision there that does suggest that if there is a project which is partway through an RMA process, they can withdraw from that and seek referral to the fast track process. But the eligibility for projects depends on a number of criteria, one of which is that the project will have regional or national benefit. And there's a number of matters that ministers have to or may consider in determining whether it has got those benefits. And as I think I mentioned, they're so broad and wide open that you could pretty much make an argument for any project to meet the criteria. There's enough wriggle room in the criteria, put it that way, to get most projects in if the ministers decide that that's what they want to do.
Thank you, Mark.
But it's
just asking if that answered the question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Mark and Brent. It seems to me, as talking to Wikitoria quietly, wearing our River Authority hats as well, if ever there was perhaps a need rather than an opportunity for all of the parties, i.e. ourselves as councils, district and regional iwi authorities and the River Authority, to work together to make sure, because I suspect our submissions will inevitably be quite aligned in terms of what we're looking for, that this is it. So I think that would be a message, if I'm reading the room right, that this committee would want to
do it as a collective, or is it more powerful to do it as a collective rather than individual councils?
I'd suggest it be a combination of both. Do you have any comment on that, Nev?
Yeah, yes, I'd suggest a combination of both. From a regional perspective, we'll have our own particular view. There'll be genuine alignment with local authorities around certain matters, but there'll be specific issues that local authorities the councils would want to comment on related to their own specific needs. So, but however, there is, I believe, room for doing some common submissions, but you'd want to do your own submissions first and foremost.
And I think we tend to do it anyway, sharing our submissions before we send them off as well. So that might raise issues that other entities might want to put on theirs, as well. So
just an additional comment, I think time is of the essence here. Mark alluded to maybe a month or so. It seems a little uncertain what the date of that select committee to deliberate is set, if it's set yet. But I would say we
wouldn't want to take too much time because like the legislation being fast tracked, I think a decision about making it is going to be a fast track as well. Did you have a comment, Mark, if you had any clarity around potentially those sort of committee dates?
I vaguely remember hearing that it might be in the sort of second quarter of this year, but beyond that, I don't really have anything more precise. I don't know if you do, Brent.
No, but I totally agree with you, Nev. I'm sure all councils are the same, working feverishly on getting submission points before their council for endorsement, and totally endorse the idea of us sharing our, having our policy people work together and work with our iwi partners around providing a joined up regional voice. Over.
Thank you, Brent. Mayor Robertson, you had a...
Yeah, just again, thinking about this, I think each council may wish to make its own submission. I think trying to get a collective through here, it gets hard for councils too, because we all have to, each council has to approve a submission going. And I think, the sharing of submissions is a good idea and the sharing of some discussion, but then I think each council has to do its own thing, really.
Fine. No other comments? If not, we'll carry on.
So just, look, I just have to move that this report we received, so I'll move that. Again, as deputy second, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried.
Cool.
So now on to our Waikato Regional Council draft long-term plan. I think we're going online to that with Haven and morning, Haven.
Morning, tēnā koutou katoa, ko uropi te whakapaparanga mai, ko Kimiriti te whenua tupu, ko Kimiriti te kāinga, he Corporate Planning Manager OE, ko Kunahere Arohe o Waikato o, ko Haven Walsh toku unga, tēnā tātou katoa. So kia ora, good morning, Haven Walsh, Corporate Planning Manager. Just noting that this report is to provide an update on the development of our long-term plan and then just quickly note our consultation topics and timeframes. Now, I know we're stretched a bit for time for the agenda, so just want to touch base and check if you would like me to give a brief overview of the report or take it as read.
Everyone happy to take it as read? Yeah. Any questions anyone's got?
The forum's happy to take it as read. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right there, so I'll just, if anybody does have any burning questions, happy to take those. Otherwise, it does note there that our consultation period will open from 2nd of April, run through to the 2nd of May. Hearings will be scheduled from the 14th to the 17th of May, and then deliberations between the 24th, 29th of May, for council scheduled to adopt the LTP on the 25th of June.
Dave, can we make those dates excellent?
I'll note
those dates here in the minutes.
And just looking there, so the natural heritage rate, that's the way we collect funding to support community groups and individuals to do basically environmental enhancing projects. That's something that you guys would probably have an interest in, both councils and Nehenehenui. The PP one, that's probably something you'd have an interest in as well, because it does impact particularly just about all of these communities represented in this room. We developed that regional development fund several years ago. It hasn't quite evolved in the way we thought it would, so they're worth taking a bit of a squiz at that one. And Te Waka's our regional development economic agency, which we're just looking at ways we can fund that going forward as well. We I guess tend to think as a council there's value there, but open to feeding in that one. And the last one there, the changing of funding to primary industry compliance, that's primarily around how we fund the way in which we monitor compliance with our regional freshwater plan rules, basically around agriculture. So I think that's something that you'd all have an interest in as well. So yeah.
Mayor Robertson.
This is just detail, and it's maybe not for this forum, but the on page 2 of the report, or page 43 of the agenda, the proposals public transport. There's a paragraph that says that district council rate for these services. We don't rate for these services. We have at times provided a grant towards them, but we do not rate for them. And
that to be fair, that is specific district councils acknowledge, it's not Waitomo.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, we probably should have been a bit more, provided a wee bit more clarity. It says there which ones are doing it, John.
Okay. Yeah.
Number 17.
Are we happy to move on?
Yeah, just need to move that report. All those in favour, please say aye. Gary, thanks, Haven. Appreciate your time.
Good, thank you.
Cheers.
Agenda is the Waikato District Council.
And I've got the biodiversity.
I do.
Yeah.
That's some.
Judy.
Kia ora.
Judy.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Judy Van Rossen tōku ingoa. Ko Horana, whakapaparanga mai. Engari, ko tamaki makaurau te whenua tupu. He tamahiri, o e noho ana. He kaitou hu tohu ko papahiri. Taio aho e te kunahere arohe o Waikato no reira. Tēnā koutou katoa. My name is Judy Van Rossum and I work in the policy implementation team at Council as a specialist policy advisor. I'm relatively new to the policy area, but prior to that I was in the biodiversity team managing the Council's contestable funding programs, including the Natural Heritage Fund and the Environmental Initiatives Fund. So this report provides a progress update on the Waikato Biodiversity Accord with key stakeholders, and this is one of the goals in Council's strategic direction. So as you know, there's a national policy statement for Indigenous biodiversity, or NPSIB as we call it, that was gazetted last year in August. One of the directives is that it contains a requirement for regional councils to develop a regional biodiversity strategy. So these strategies are essentially a community and stakeholder-driven plan for restoring biodiversity at a landscape scale. And Waikato Regional Council is actually one of the few councils that currently doesn't have a regional biodiversity strategy. Other regional councils have developed one. They were prior to the NPSIB, but yeah, we are one of the few that don't have one at all. So as well as the NPSIB, we've also got strong priorities for protection and enhancement of biodiversity in the regional policy statement. The Department of Conservation, the Ministry for Primary Industries, the Kiwi2 National Trust, the 11 territorial authorities in the region, and also key iwi partners, they all have statutory responsibilities and or cultural imperatives for managing Indigenous biodiversity. So what we're doing is we're seeking a commitment from these entities to be signatories to the Biodiversity Accord, and this is about working together and building partnerships, coordinating and aligning our biodiversity activities, and developing an overarching biodiversity strategy for the region. So the Accord is the first step in developing a regional biodiversity strategy. So we do have a first draft of the Accord, and it's attached to the paper in the agenda. It's in the form of a simple, high-level, voluntary, non-statutory agreement. It has a purpose statement, a set of principles, some objectives, and a statement of commitment. So just to give you a bit of background as to how we got there. So we started the process in September by carrying out some targeted reporting to some of the co-governance hui that were happening at that time. We then engaged with the proposed Accord partners at the staff level. So we held 2 workshops, one in December and one in February. The first workshop was to gather ideas for the content, mainly around the principles of working together. And we also looked at examples, for instance, of other accords, such as the Waipa Peat Lakes and Wetlands Accord. So there were iwi representatives, there were territorial authority representatives and DOC and Kiwi2 at those, or at that first meeting and also the second meeting. We then put together this kaupapa into a draft document and circulated that for feedback. And then we held a second workshop at the end of February. And so we're now aiming to further refine the draft and get some, so we're keen to get some more feedback. And staff from the territorial authorities are also taking the draft accord to their respective governance. And we're also engaging further with DOC and Kiwi2 and the Ministry for Primary Industries as well. So we're looking to finalise the accord and take it to our council by the end of June this year. And I just want to talk a little bit about the accord and then the strategy. So the accord itself doesn't involve a commitment of time and resources and money at this stage, but becoming an accord partner or a signatory signals a commitment to work together and to develop that regional biodiversity strategy. And we're looking at a 2 to 3 year timeframe for that. And that strategy will contain actions to improve biodiversity in the region. So in developing the strategy, we want to be able to engage further. So beyond the accord partners, so with other stakeholders such as community groups, industry groups, and at the local level as well with hapu where they are willing to be involved. So that's to ensure that we capture a wide range of views. So the idea being that the strategy would contain those agreed actions that can then be costed and brought into the next long-term plan and annual plan round in 2027. And that's quite an important step in implementing the strategy and making sure that those actions are resourced. So then beyond the strategy, the accord will then be the basis for facilitating regular meetings and communications between the signatory parties to then monitor the progress of putting in place those actions and monitoring biodiversity as a whole. So hopefully I've explained that in a way that is understandable. Now I'm happy to take questions. Any questions? And any feedback too on the draft document?
Yeah, in the biodiversity accord, when we look about each school, that's the way they're going to deal with one another. We actually decide as to what is the fauna or flora that are not endemic to places like Karakia. And what will there be a process that can determine what the locals see in the area?
So is that, so if I can understand your question correctly, so you're talking about particular invasive species and then being able to deal with those and move towards having more indigenous flora fauna in the area that are, is that what?
Yeah, I think it pertains to both fauna and flora. And anything that flies.
That flies, yep. So that's certainly where we're wanting to get down to that sort of local and particularly district level where because we want the strategy to be able to look at actions that go within districts and across districts as well. And those actions will be around biosecurity and biodiversity actions. So it will be around looking at how we're dealing with invasive species and pest animal and pest plant species, as well as restoring biodiversity at that local level. So that's why we want to be able to engage at that local level to find out what people want in their area. And I noticed too that we've got Patrick Whaley here, who's the manager for biosecurity and biodiversity online. So Patrick, I don't know whether you want to also make some comment at all. No, he's not. Yep.
Yeah, kia ora, Judy. No, I think you're covering it really nicely.
Okay.
I just agree with you.
Any questions?
Well, just to finish it off, I know this settlement that Manipura have in terms of some of those areas that especially around our waterways, and it goes all the way to Mokau and a lot in the Nehenehenui, where Doc had the responsibility of managing those flora that were invasive. From what I can gather now, they're saying they're not. Would that be correct? Because of the
Can't answer that.
settlement. If that's the case, can we put that back on the accord?
I mean, the accord is about working together, and we're looking at DOC to be a signatory party to the accord, and so that's around that sort of working together philosophy that underpins, or principle that underpins the accord. So if there are issues like that we need DOC to address, then we're looking towards using the accord as an agreement to.
Yeah, because what I see there is we have some areas that are on private land, which is, I believe, is the responsibility of the private owner to maintain that, and I don't, and most of it has been done well. But the areas where, while there was a settlement, it's still under the umbrella of what do you call it? An area that of good for the public. Manipura only receives it back in terms of maintaining its present values. So I'm not too sure whether maintaining those present values went with it or what, because I mean every landowner are the ones that are, or adjacent to these areas, are the ones that are finding it difficult because they're the seeding grounds of a lot of that stuff that they're battling with.
Right. Yeah.
And so if we're paying rates, maybe that's not that hasn't got anything to do with it, but you raise the accord. So accord has to be meaningful.
Absolutely.
And it has to bring justice, otherwise we might as well throw it out the door. And
yes, I agree, and I think we're hoping that this accord will also address some of those elephants in the room that, if we were already starting to develop those relationships with the territorial authorities and with the other parties in that accord by having these hui and workshops and trying to tease out some of the ways in which we work together. So I'm hoping that we can.
Yeah. Okay. I think I've made my points anyway, and thank you very much for that.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one question. Is that with the accord, John, there's lots of pieces to the puzzle, and I think lots of times our small encatchments get left behind, and I'm always worried that when big spatial planning stuff goes over the top of them, although they are little and they get forgotten, there's lots of little ones that if they amalgamated together, they could be quite significant. But I think my fear is that when we're doing some of this stuff, or the stuff is coming in, that we're forgetting those little things, and that then brings on the capability. They don't have the capability to be able to engage and have some of their stuff supported. And so if there's ever a time that you can always think about them, I would urge you to support the smaller parties in the whole thing, because they get left behind all the time.
Yeah. So that is a matter of scale and how we engage as well. And it may be that we have it's probably quite likely that we have the strategy, which is that regional spatial kind of strategy that you're referring to, but then we have the action plan that falls out of that drops down a level, if you like, and goes to that more local scale. So yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Okay, nothing further. Nothing further. We're happy to. Also, in terms of in terms of the bringing together of that forum or that group, the is there a space for an iwi representative or one of our technicians or something like that in that space?
We did have Mia Morgan came to the workshops, but I know she's on leave at the moment. Really hoping to have someone to take her place.
She has actually left.
Right, okay, right.
Yeah, it's just Tremaine.
It's right. Yeah,
Just Tremaine, she doesn't get any sleep.
But it's really useful having the staff there from the iwi organisations and all the other organisations at these wānanga. Really appreciate it.
Everybody happy to move on? We'll just deal with the resolution. The recommendation is that the report Waikato Biodiversity Accord Update March 2024. Thank you. Brackets to Nehenehenui and Regional Council Co-Governance Forum. Council Forum. 20th of March be received. Leader, please.
Yeah, I'm
Amy, John as a seconder. All in favour?
Aye.
Everybody abstain? Carl. Thank you. Thank you. So the next on the agenda, we're now at the space for the Waikato District Council, I think.
Freshwater Policy.
I keep missing one, eh? Sorry, Freshwater Policy Statement.
Freshwater, that's our Regional Council Freshwater Work Programme Secretary, Peter Wishart, who's going to take us through that one. Morning, Peter.
Yeah, Marina, and kia ora tātou, ko Peter Wishart taku ingoa. I'm a Senior Policy Advisor with the Regional Council in the Water Policy team, funnily enough. I'm very conscious of time. I'm more than happy to give an overview or just go straight to questions, so very much in your hands.
How do people feel? Or if you've got specific questions on what you've read in here, happy to do it either way. Or you with stuff you feel you've got as much as you need out of reading it. Getting the vibes, people are pretty happy. Might be off the hook, Peter.
I'm happy to talk to the end of the cows come home on this one.
We're getting close to lunchtime, too.
I know.
Okay, I'm hearing we'll take it as read and everyone's pretty happy.
Can I just make one point?
Yep.
And that point is in terms of Te Ture Whai Mana remains as the main direction setting document. So even when the revised and the replacement to the National Policy Statement for Freshwater comes in, Te Ture Whai Mana will still remain in place. And that will be the main document which looks after the Waipa and the Waikato catchments.
I think we've got to support that.
Yep. Absolutely, yeah. And obviously with the previous conversation, we had a few agenda items about fast track consenting bill. The River Authority is taking a pretty keen interest in that as well. Make sure we can maintain the mana of Te Ture Whai Mana.
If we resolve to it's here that you're on a bit of final work. Report and as we I'll move that we support the report.
Yep.
I think it's a second us that it. Recommendation that the report Waikato Biodiversity Accord Update March 2024.
Freshwater Policy Review.
Oh, looking at that freshwater policy.
Yeah, fresh. It's on page 53.
Yeah. Happy to move forward and somebody move. Uncle moved.
Yeah. So John's removing it with an addition, Dave, that this committee supports the work that the council is doing in that space. But the particular emphasis on ensuring we give effect to Te Ture Whai Mana. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Happy to second.
And all in favour?
Right.
I don't have. I can go straight to the next agenda.
Yeah, finally.
Waikato Regional. District Council. Here we go. Table is yours.
Alicia and Vishal online.
probably similar to previous reports, we could take the document which is appended to that cover report. As read by Michelle and Lisa, I might want to highlight some key things. And we've also got sitting beside me Everard, who's leading some of our social procurement work in that space.
Kia ora, chairpersons. Thank you, Will. Ko Vishal Ramdani Tokuingua, Taku Mahi Strategic Initiatives and Partnerships Manager Te Konahera Atakewa o Waikato. I'm happy to take the reports as read, chairperson. However, just like to highlight a few comments, and one related to the Marae Resiliency Strategy. As the committee would know, there are no Maniapoto Marae within the Waikato District Council boundary, because however, we have a JMA with Waikato Tanui. We have several Maniapoto Marae within their tribal parliament, but Waipa District Council, Civil Defence, Emergency Management have agreed to work closely with us to support the Marae resiliency work across Waikato, Maniapoto, Rohe, and Gannon is leading this work as a staff member on our behalf. And then secondly, with regards to social procurement, the Everard, who is in the room with you, is doing some work together with Wayne Panapa. I'm just going to hand over to Everard just to make a few comments on the social procurement work. Everard, over to you.
Ko Everard, whakamutunga te whenua. In the social procurement space, we're pushing a framework that identifies the river as an important, how can I put it, descriptor to talk about our people all along the river and how Waipa and Waikato merge. We're using the framework and the dams as an analogy where Māori businesses have barriers to enter. Looking at our contracts, we've got some significant contracts that are lapsing in the next 2 years, and hopefully working with Wayne and Sam, we'll be able to lift capability and capacity over that timeframe so they can participate. Myself and the contracting team will then look at the services and then using risk, identify the tier 1 suppliers through to the lower tier suppliers, and then invite people to participate. That's the current strategy that we're adopting and moving forward. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Brad. Thank you, Chairperson.
Gannon, do you have any comments to make?
Well, first of all, I've got a conflict. The Waikato District Council. So I'll just stay there. I'll just sit here and take for whatever the forum wants to do. Kia ora. Kia ora again.
Come on. Anyone else? Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Everard.
Kia ora, Chairperson.
Yeah, thank you. So everybody can find it.
63. Just for the second.
So we're just going to receive the report.
Yep.
Make that. Mayor O'Regan, it could be move any questions? And Stu will pick them. All in favour?
And finally, in terms of formal stuff, we just got an update on the clam, and I think we've got Patrick online and probably Judy as well. Any sort of commentary there, Patrick?
Yeah, kia ora tātou, ko Patrick Wali, taku ingoa. Yeah, as Judy introduced me, I'm the Biodiversity Biosecurity Manager at the council, the regional council. Look, Stu, if we can just take it as read, and I've just got a couple of points and then throw it open to some questions. I guess my point says MPI, so Biosecurity New Zealand, is still leading what is a national biosecurity response with regards to Corbicula or the gold clams. And Waikato Regional Council and a whole lot of other stakeholders are supporting that response where they can. Given eradication, unfortunately, is not really on the table in the medium to long term, we're left dealing with how to try and contain the infestation to where it is in the river. And I would note that MPI is casting their mind to where does this go? Where does this program of works go long term? So how do we, as a country, stop this thing from spreading all around the place and causing the chaos that unfortunately will go with that? And I know, look, I sit on the clam response governance with a whole lot of other people, and yeah, so a lot of this information is around the traps. So I guess just throw it open for some questions if there are any.
Yeah, through the chair. Kia ora, Patrick. Gannon on speed.
Kia ora, Gannon.
Hey, look, can you just tell me if there's any chance of the golden clam coming up through to the Waipa, or what can we do to stop that from happening?
So the trick is they don't swim upstream, so they probably wouldn't get there by themselves, so they'll need some help. And that would normally be people, really, is probably the most common way that they would move around. So it's really about making sure that everyone's doing the check, clean, dry procedures, making sure that they clean their gear down, dry it off before they move it to a non-infested part of the river or the country, other areas. So and as such, like, there's been, heaps and heaps of korero at all the events that are going on with all the river users. Yeah, so it's about, and to be honest, all the river users are being pretty good. They're being awesome, actually. Loads of them have got their own ambassadors in place and are trying really hard to meet that check, clean, dry criteria that is so important. So it's about cutting off the pathways.
So just in addition to Gannon's pātai, Patrick, it seems like Rotorua Lakes have been a bit more proactive than we are.
Yeah, they don't want it. They definitely don't want the clams over in Te Arawa. Yeah, so but they've already had a really quite a big freshwater biosecurity program after catfish were found in Lake Rotoiti. So yeah, so they don't want more pests. So they've been really proactive. It's a bit of a difference, I guess, between those with the infestation and those that don't have it. But yeah, we don't want it in the Waipa, that's for sure.
Yeah, Kapai, so just thank you, Patrick. Just noting when you talked about really we're talking about managing it now or maintaining or in that area, but actually the iwi, Waikato iwi, all of the iwi that are at the moment looking into how they can best deal with the golden clams. Waikato is still saying eradication first, but still look at the management and the maintaining of what's happening here. I don't think that's changed at all in terms of our Waikato River iwi. There hasn't really been a formal decision here at Te Nehenehenui about the golden clams, although we have Tama involved in there as the Taiao projects person, and he sits in the forums with the iwi as well. So yeah, just being really clear that that's while that might be where biodiversity are at or where councils might be at, I don't know that for sure. Iwi was still about eradication first, while still looking to how maintain or really contain it. Kapai?
Kapai, I mean, I agree, and I think you've got to run both of these things in parallel, trying to not make the problem worse by moving it around, and also keep your eye on how do we manage it, and hopefully in the long term get it out of the river. So yeah, look like we're on the same page.
Right, and so just from Te Nehenehenui, we're just wanting to ensure that the kaitiaki and TNN are part of the design and development of the plan. Each opportunities are made available to kaitiaki and to undertake some of that work. That's the first thing. The second thing, we've already proven to MPI and councils that we have the capacity to do. Our kaitiaki are already undertaking some monitoring efforts across the Waipa. So, so I guess all of that really is ensuring that we're still engaged in the process, not just Te Nehenehenui, the entity, but also our kaitiaki mana whenua. Okay?
Yeah, kapai. I mean, and absolutely, we're reiterating those messages as MPI grapple with developing a long-term management plan together with all the partners.
And no questions. Look, an observation. Kia ora, Patrick. Susan Regan speaking.
Kia ora.
Look, I'm pleased to receive an update. I'm kind of curious that I have to come to a Nehenehenui meeting to receive it as a mayor who's responsible for a significant municipal water supply. And this has been something that has been occurring through the entire incursion process in terms of very little information being shared at levels that you thought it should have been and ought properly have been shared in. So look, I don't know, and I've checked with Gary, this is a detail of information and update that we've never seen at a council level, and it just defies logic, really. You know, and I the risk of sounding a little bit aggressive, I've been banging on about this since it was first discovered, and it seems I'm going to have to keep banging on about it because obviously we're not seen as a stakeholder that ought to be kept abreast of what's going on, and it just defies logic. So I'll just put it out there, chuck that on a leaf on the river, and let it float down, and hopefully you might add me to an email list at some point.
Yeah, it's not my program, but I agree, and I will pass that information on to the owners of the program at this point. But just say I agree with you.
I believe the only council that's been involved in the governance at governance level anyway is regional council, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, it's regional council. Yeah.
Yep.
So it'd be good to get some traction on that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Papai. I've just got one more thing to say in terms of all of those items that were information papers. Actually, Te Nehenehenui is, you know, in terms of councils, their priorities are not necessarily our priorities, although there will be some, yes, some of it will come together, but it's council priorities is not really money or priority. Where it has, I guess, pānga, where it's important in terms of what our priorities are, absolutely. The other thing is to note is that part of the, in terms of a reference inside there, it discussed recruitment of staff in terms of the terms of reference, and so you see there's quite a significant amount of money work there to be done, and so Nehenehenui seeks support, not necessarily for us to table it anyway. Support, or we've tabled it today. Support in terms of 2 staff members that we only have Tremaine, and in terms of the council work, we need people to be in there and you know, have some consistency of information sharing outside of the actual workshops that's already been developed for this forum. So that's what Te Nehenehenui seeks is 2 people dedicated to Te Nehenehenui Te Maniapoto for the region.
To add, as a part of our implementation plan, one of the schedules, I think it's Schedule 10, is around capacity and capability building. So we can work through that, what that looks like, whether that's first appointments, intervention opportunities, but just wanting to flag that there are 9 councils that we are across, and so to be able to participate and enable our whānau to participate, we require support from the councils to really open those doors. So just throwing that up there on the table that when we get to that schedule, we're going to be pushing.
Another day.
How we can note that one. Yeah.
Okay, so we're all happy to note that discussion.
We just had to do a admin thing. I'll just move and look at it a second. The Golden Clam report, Dave. So that carry.
Happy to, all in favour?
Right.
Are we happy to move on to that, I guess it's a general business / final comment space.
John.
And I'm very much sure John has something to talk to the table about.
Okay. Well, I mean, this organisation or group have come together some time now, and are making small gains. But what I hear today, and I'm more than happy that we will achieve our goal. Now, probably a year and a half ago, both Glenn's just next door to Weora, we invited or we were told to go to Whakatoa on the sale of the ski field. And so we were, as I say, invited there, and because Whakatoa used us as the whanaunga, and that many of our people have interest in that maunga. And so the sale was being advertised, and so their concern was that they thought they might apply for it and find out what all the ins and outs for a sale was going to be like, and whether that suited them or not. But in that discussion that we had there, and we gave what we thought was our view of the maunga, is that we weren't happy with the recent proprietors of the ski field, in that there were so many spills over time, and there didn't seem to be any great rush to contain the spills there. And because from our view, and it's been a long held view of Māori, that the Waikato River is so developed that it relies heavily on the snow that lands on the mountain. It's possibly the largest reservoir that we have that maintains our people and our system of living. And yet we don't. So I mean, all this calling was happened there, and Glenn can add on if he wants. If we wanted to, we would support Whakatoa. And so we have given our view in terms of Whakatoa maintaining a Māori view of the maunga, not only for Māori, but for everybody. Everything that walks virtually because of the water. So, of course, as it turned out, the government weren't prepared perhaps to provide some assistance towards the development of it, or the further development, or any new owners. That it's still left in abeyance or hanging there at the moment. But I also gave Tā Te Heu our unwavering assistance, whatever. So what I'm saying here is that we at this table should also do the same thing. Where we may be able to help Whakatoa set some standards that will help our people, and then give some guidance to those people that are prepared to manage or run the ski fields to the betterment of people. It does from what I could gather, it does provide the Wanganui. You know, that is now, and from that same source, it now provides water to the Waikato also from time to time. They can divert that water. So the degradation of the water, or even into the snow, in time will percolate its way into all the rivers. So I just thought I'd put that on the table and see where we go. As I say, I'm concerned about it, but if Glenn's got anything to say that might be of value that to us. So, you know, whether that's a good idea or not, that's up to this table. It's not up when you put it. We are trying to work together, but I would say this, because we had to, because I've given them our undertaking, we could be sitting on their side if it looks like there's a split in this table. So I think it's better to be brought out now, so we know what we're talking about. So I think that's, perhaps we just should give some thought to it.
Right. Anyone have any initial comments about?
Yeah, I think the chair. Just to be clear, Uncle, when we're talking about Ruapehu or the Kahui Maunga, Ruapehu?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, all the water's on the mountain, because
yeah,
they're on the eastern side, it all flows into the Waikato.
Yes.
On the western side, parts of it can flow into the Waikato because of the diversification.
Mm.
And the other part goes into the Wanganui.
Right.
So the amount of people that relies on Ruapehu as their water source is huge.
Whakapapa comes under the jurisdiction of Horizons, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And we still, as part of Ngāwai or Manipato, our relationships have to be extended. We're not there yet. We have to bring in 2 other councils or 3 other councils to have those discussions. But you're right, whatever affects the headwaters, and we have 3 headwaters within Manipato: Waitara, Wainuiarua and Waipa. So it's important for us to be mindful that the headwaters are critical from Waikato all the way down. Yeah.
No, look, I'm happy if we left it to the regional district council to do what it needs to do.
Yeah.
But I believe that we could make a stand.
Yeah, I think that's probably, we'd be a wee bit careful that we don't stray out of the bounds of our terms of reference here, which might be easier to leave it for the individual councils to do a say.
Yeah. But at least we've raised it.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to suggest, that perhaps if any of the councils are keen to know more about this, because it doesn't fit within the scope here, then please they can get in touch with you.
Oh,
definitely.
I think it's obvious to every farmer and every person.
Yeah.
I think it's more to do with the regional council. Work.
That one, yeah.
So that could be a proposal to board, Nehenehenui board to consider in terms of support of your corridor.
Well, I think we need to get the support from, say, the regional council for us to move on something. We can then, if they want to make some form of vision or something like that.
Yeah, no, we can have a discussion offline and think about that one and come back to you guys. But
Then we might be able to just receive it and
Fine.
yeah.
Are we happy to, oh, sorry.
And I think just like, thank you, Uncle John, for bringing that up, because my whakaaro is that, you know, we must remember where our water comes from in terms of the Central Plateau. So we are all reliant on that water, and water gives us life. But I think, like for me, it's a gateway for us as councils to then do our own rangahau in terms of how we can support Uncle John's whātai going forward. I think we would be ignorant if we thought we don't have a say in where that water comes from and how it supplies us. So for me, you know, to go home back into our council and actually say, and I've always said it at the table, we need to remember, and I'm aware that Ruapehu's council is not here. And I'm aware that, and even though in terms of the JMA and governing our jurisdictions, but to have those relationships, because it's going to be those relationships that will support the big impacts going forward. And I think we're quite quick to go off into our own little isolation groups and kōrero. So ngā mihi, Uncle John, for bringing that to the table. I don't know how this team can support that kōrero. I think it's a thing we'll have to really think about. But I mihi that you brought it to this forum, because it's important that we know.
And just to add to the kōrero, obviously once we have everyone in the room, or the other relevant councils for ngā wai o Maniapoto, we have to look at a more integrated way in how we're going to manage all our resources going forwards. That is a primary sort of focus that we have to look at, how we can do that strategically and better alongside each other, supporting each other, and as I said before, how we leverage as a collective to our crown partners. Because we've got the local solutions, and we just need a bit of support going forwards.
Thank you, Gannon. Tony?
I just was one thing I probably add is work with the future-proof councils. There's a concept that they use, which is called boundaryless planning. So while Waipa, Waikato, Hamilton, Manamara, were all their own different body, they adopted a concept of boundaryless planning so that they then integrated across and between catchments to look at, like, East Wales and Tauranga. So that might be something that leads out this quarter around exports.
Just as another question, how much is Auckland take from the Waikato these days?
Too much.
Too much.
Too much.
They've allocated.
Anything's too much.
All right. So we're there now?
Yep.
Hapai? Well, everyone's happy for us to close our hui and to jump in the hospitals. Can I ask for Karakia, please?
Hi. O tēnā tātou te whānau, kia kuranga tira kupakaro I kumai nei tēnei rangi. Ai, e mihi ana kia koutou. Engari, yeah, just looking at the time. Kei noi tātou. He unuhanga ānuku, he unuhanga ārangi. He māreretanga, he mā unutanga. Ko te pau kātū, he pau waha te pau, he pau wehe te pau. Ko wehe atu te pau mi o nā ahotanga ki tū o pai. Kia tātaka mai, ko te ao mārama. Kia māra mai I runga, kia māra mai I raro, kia māra mai I waho, kia māra mai I roto. Kia ti, kia aho, kia ti aho mai I roto. Tītoko te ao mārama. Whano, whanake tū mai te toki, haungi e hui e.
Tīnā tātou.
Maybe ora.
That's fine. Well, yeah, that's probably true. Yeah. Jumping.
Hello. Bye.